Hello and welcome to today's special interview. I am Anika Basi, AGM Special Initiatives at KrishiJagran. It is my pleasure to host this discussion on a critical and emerging area of agriculture, the detection and prevention of airborne pathogens. At KrishiJagran, we are committed to bringing the latest innovations and insights to the farming community. And today, we are delighted to have with us the visionaries behind Scanit technology. Joining us today are Mr. Pete, the founder, and Mr. Jaydeep, the co-founder of Scanit Technologies. Mr. Pete and Mr. Jaydeep are leading a bold mission to improve lives by detecting airborne pathogens before they cause harm. Their innovative approach combines cutting-edge technology with a deep understanding of the agriculture challenges that farmers face today. Mr. Pete and Mr. Jaydeep, a warm welcome to you both, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us. Pleasure.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Anika.
Okay, great. So moving forward, let's begin with the questions now. So my first question would be for Mr. Pete. So Scanit Technologies has a bold vision of improving lives by detecting airborne pathogens before they cause harm. Could you share what inspired this vision, particularly the focus on agriculture and how you see it evolving in the future?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. This was the result of a very personal experience that I went through in the year 2013. My firstborn son was diagnosed with cancer at the age of he was only 18 months old, and coming out of the hospital after the first chemo treatment, the doctors told us try to keep him away from pathogens, things, allergens that will make him sick, given that chemotherapy will bring your body's white cells down to zero, right? So your body has no immunity. You're exposed. Back then, my wife and I, we thought that we could go online and buy some kind of device that will tell us what's in the air, right? If it's something friendly or if it's going to make us sick, fungus, allergenic pollens. Having a child at that age is not something that you want to keep him in a bubble, right? Locked up and go 2 weeks later, go back to the hospital for more treatment. So we said we want him to enjoy as a fulfilling life that he can, but we couldn't find anything. So it was a big struggle for us and seeing him get sick, catching infections. I told my wife, unfortunately, my son passed a year later. And I told my wife I felt that I could build something that can tell us what's in the air to help us, keep us from getting sick, basically, or at least lessen the burden of disease. I assembled some of my other colleagues together, and we started working in my garage like so many startups. My colleagues are mostly from equipment, sensing, instrumentation industry, looking at defects in semiconductor production, metrology, process quality control. These are things that you cannot touch, otherwise you can introduce even more problems into the process. And just using optics to try to figure out to classify particles, to classify what's in the air. So fast forward to where we're at today. We have our device that is being deployed in agricultural fields. We met a lot of folks who are sitting here in Northern California, which is the home of Napa wine country. We met the Dr. Walter Gubler from University of California, Davis. He's a famous plant pathologist who created the powdery mildew index. So he introduced us to a lot of vineyards and winemaking operations, and they fell in love with the technology, the prototype that we had at the time. This is back in 2016 at this point. And I think at this point, the rest is history. We got Jaydeep on our team as well as co-founder, and we have plenty of deployments across multiple crops, both indoors and outdoors today. So that's how we started the technology and how it got us to where we're at today.
That's a great vision, actually. So my next question is also to Mr. Pete only. You see, with global population on increasing day by day and decreasing farmland, the agricultural sector is under immense pressure. So how does Scanit technology specifically help farmers mitigate the risk associated with these airborne pathogens? And how critical is this for the future of food security?
Absolutely. It's there's so many things that come into play in agriculture when it comes to disease. One is regulations that are impacting agriculture, runoff from chemicals and pesticides that are harmful to humans as well, neighboring communities that get exposed. So there's government regulations that are coming into play over the next few years. There's a need to feed a larger population with less available agricultural land, and how to improve the quality of those crops as well are some of the biggest challenges that are found today across the world, not just specific countries, but across the world in general. We also seen that over the last few decades, diseases are also mutating at a faster speed. There's also issues with climate change that are causing new diseases to come up in other areas of the world that haven't been seen at all. So what we do at Scanit Technologies is help farmers and agricultural operations understand when disease starts, as well as when it is necessary to actually do a spray application, a pesticide application. Our technology is capable of seeing the start of disease 2 to 3 weeks before the human eye can actually see it, which provides plenty of time to mitigate the disease as early as possible, and provides the ability for the farmer to figure out what chemistry is working best, if it's possible to apply a biological versus some organic or inorganic type of chemistries. They have that information at their fingertips to make an informed decision as to what might be the best application to use at a given time of the year for a given crop, as well as what is the efficacy of the mitigation strategy. So it allows them to monitor and measure actually the quality of that application. And the goal of this is to hopefully apply a little bit less chemistries in the field and do it so that it's timed properly to increase the yields, maximize the crop quality as well. So I think it's a win-win for everybody that they can increase yields, provide better crop quality, sell at better prices, and we take care of the environment, we take care of the population growth as well by doing so.
Okay. So, Mr. Jaydeep, being an Indian, you know how India as a nation is a very diverse and has its own unique challenges. So, how does Scanit plan to tailor its technology to meet the specific needs of Indian farmers, especially those working in the small and medium-sized land holdings?
Absolutely. So Scanit sensors, which we call the spore cam, I have it right here in my hand. Hopefully, you all are able to see it.
Yeah.
They're currently present and have been deployed across North America, Europe, South Africa, and even Brazil over the past few years. And each region has presented us with new challenges. So based on our experience, we've learned that we can bucket these challenges for agri-tech to thrive in any region into 3 buckets. The first one is availability of internet connectivity. The second one is availability of power when the Scanit sensors are deployed on open fields. And the third and most important one is willingness to adopt and adapt to cutting edge technologies. Our research and conversations with partners in India shows that India checks all the boxes above. So for example, when it comes to internet connectivity, with the recent proliferation of data services to the most remote parts of India, thanks to favorable telecom data plans, internet connectivity is now widely available across India. So India is pretty well connected now in the most remote corners. Secondly, when it comes to availability of power, Scanit's spore cams can be powered by renewable energy sources using solar panels and batteries. So that also solves the problem of power issues in any part of the country. And Scanit has perfected this technology over many years of iterations that we've gone through. And in terms of willingness to adopt new technologies or adapt to them, I think the agri-tech ecosystem in India has been maturing at a much faster pace than previously anticipated. And we are extremely encouraged by the response that we are getting for our ag ecosystem in the last few months, and have thus decided to increase the focus much earlier than we previously anticipated. And this need of the ag community is being duly supported by recent schemes that are being rolled out by the government, the ability of new age startups to translate data into actions, as well as the demand of consumers for high quality produce. Speaking about how we plan to work with farmers with small to medium sized farms, I would say what also matters is the type and economic value of the crop being grown on these farms. So, for example, a farmer with 5 acres of vineyards has more potential for better returns than a farmer with 5 acres of, let's say, a commodity like rice, right? But our solutions cater to both the farmers above because we help the farmers maximize their yields per acre while also streamlining their operations using different business models. A very quick example, a vineyard owner could vastly benefit from having a spore cam or two monitoring just their own vineyard, while a rice or a wheat farmer could benefit from a data captured by a public network of sensors spread across hundreds of acres. This public network could be funded by either the government or any stakeholder that's interested in crop protection or optimizing yield for farmers. And we can achieve this today because we constantly strive to ensure that the value we provide far exceeds the investment into the technology.
Okay. I mean, your idea, the ability to detect the pathogens before they infest crops is really revolutionary. Could you walk us through how Scanit's technology enables farmers to take preventive action and what impact this has had on crop yield and pest management in trials?
Yes, absolutely. So let's take again grapes, for example, right? Our spore cam can detect fungal pathogens like downy mildew, which is one of the prevalent diseases in India for grapes while they're still airborne, like Pete said, and weeks before they physically damage the crops, even before satellite imagery spots it. And this helps them in more ways than just one. Firstly, it takes the guesswork out of their spray or not to spray decisions as we are providing them with real time live data on disease pressure in their farms. And this goes above and beyond traditionally available data like weather or soil related parameters. And it is probably by far the most elusive data point that we have made available to farmers in their decision making process. Secondly, since they can spray more confidently now, they can time their sprays such that they are not overspraying or underspraying. So farmers can even check the efficacy of their spray treatments in an ongoing manner, which was otherwise previously not easily possible. Thirdly, early detection also means, like Pete has already alluded to, that farmers have a chance at applying less aggressive chemicals, which eventually leads to a much healthier produce. Because the earlier the detection, the more time you have to react, and the lesser is the probability of you going after stronger chemicals or chemistries to be applied. And lastly, the early disease alerts also play a crucial role in guiding agronomists and farmers to identify and prioritize their scouting efforts. We have almost 20 plus diseases that are ready, and we can add a new disease to our detection library in about 2 to 3 weeks. And each of the crop will get similar benefit as we mentioned about, be it a grape like specialty crop or a row crop like corn, or even greenhouses for that matter. We have invested close to 6 years in iterative trials across various regions, crops, and diseases with leading top 5 agri-input companies in the world. And these were not just restricted to row crops, but greenhouse and horticulture as well. And during these trials and pilots, we were able to detect disease up to 3 weeks before it was visible to the naked eye. We could differentiate between a heavily infested and a moderately infested farm. We were able to witness higher quality yield when the grower treated their roses with Scanit data guided sprays as opposed to the commercial calendar based sprays. We even have a leading agrochemical company mentioned that they expected a 20 to 30 bushel acre per acre increase for crops like corn, which is a dominant row crop in the US. And more importantly, one of our anchor customers, I think nothing beats a customer testimonial, and that to a public one. So one of our anchor customers who has been subscribing to our data year after year mentioned how more farmers started using their Scanit powered disease models after we earned the farmers' trust in our data, which is probably the most important aspect of any ag tech technology being adopted.
Very rightly mentioned. So for many Indian farmers, especially smallholders, affordability and ease of use are key concerns. And how does Scanit plan to make its technology accessible in the scalable across diverse and often resource-constrained farming communities in India?
So at Scanit, we are committed to ensuring that the technology is accessible, easy to use, and provides significant ROI. I think that's really what it really boils down to, return on investments, right? At its very core, Scanit's offering is a data as a service. We are providing airborne fungal pathogen detection as data as a service, right? But this data will be of no use unless it reaches as many farmers as possible. So we've ensured our data can be delivered and distributed through cost-effective and scalable ways. For example, we integrate very well with existing mobile applications and dashboards that farmers have already been using to manage their farming operations. Secondly, agronomists and their advice are integral to farmers' decisions today, right? Be it any part of the world. In India, many small landowners don't use agronomists, but they use their own experience when it comes to making decisions. So we make this data easily readable for agronomists and willing farmers who then interpret it in combination with other parameters, such as their own local expertise, the weather, etc., to provide advice to multiple other farmers in the same area. So it's the same conventional, traditional means of what people or farmers are used to getting data inputs from. And we want to push this data through those means as well. We also know farmers can get easily overwhelmed with a multitude of dashboards and other reports that they use daily, right? So we also provide the option of SMS alerts that ensures that the data finds the farmer instead of the farmer taking the efforts to find the data. We want the data to go to the farmer instead of the farmer taking the effort to go and search for the data. And our data is an invaluable input for many stakeholders beyond just the farmer. So FPOs, well-funded NGOs who work on raising yields for farmers, crop insurance companies, agricultural departments, agri-input companies, universities, seed companies, etc. So a consortium of these stakeholders with complementary objectives and non-conflicting interests can fund a sentinel network of spore camps and make the data available to a larger ecosystem. So we mentioned in one of our previous questions, how is it that small to medium-sized farms can benefit from this, right? So if a consortium of these stakeholders are able to fund a sentinel network and make the data available to a larger ecosystem, it definitely helps in optimizing the cost. And Scanit would be working very closely with such stakeholders for wider reach and availability of this data at an affordable cost.
Okay. As you all know, data is powerful when it's actionable. So, Pete, how does Scanit Technologies integrate with existing farm management systems, and how do you envision empowering farmers through data-driven decisions?
So we provide a few options for the farmer here. One is that integration with the farm management systems, the FMS. In that case, we offer a push API that they can ingest our data into their systems, and that can be combined on their end with the rest of those decisions as to when to apply the pesticides, fungicides, when to schedule them, who's going to do what, how many tractors are going to be needed, or is it going to be some manual spraying applications? That can combine that, and it can combine with the FMS and be able to collect all the information that is needed for larger operations. At the same time, as Jaydeep mentioned previously, we also provide SMS alerts to farmers when disease exceeds certain thresholds. So we do have gather and provide knowledge-based actionable data. So we can provide alerts when certain diseases exceed a certain number per volumetric airflow in 24-hour counts or even hourly counts. And that information they can receive in a very simple format, not having to go through a lot of software clicks inside an FMS system. And the last one is obviously our data is also available in the Scanit dashboard as well. So the Scanit dashboard is something they can have available in any smartphone or a tablet or a computer system, any type of laptop or desktop. They can log in anywhere in the world and see what is happening in their fields as it relates to disease at any given point in time. Going back to the FMS systems, this would ideally be used in more larger operations, as Jaydeep mentioned, sentinel networks that cover a large region. Those would be ideal for those situations. But even for the small farmer, they can still have data available that through those SMS alerts and or through our dashboard that can help them keep their mind at peace while they're sleeping.
Okay. Moving on, my next question is again for you, Mr. Pete. So while your current focus is on agriculture, we saw on your website that Scanit's vision includes addressing air health in broader context also, like food processing, hospitals, and schools. So could you share more about this future trajectory and how do you plan to transition from agriculture to these areas?
Great question. What we found early on, and as I mentioned, part of that vision and how I started the company was and developing the technology had to do with human health. What we found along the way is that the same pathogens that affect human health are also affecting, it's the same kind of fungal pathogens affect agriculture as well as livestock. Through our research, we found out that a lot of these pathogens are obviously found in buildings and as you mentioned, schools, hospitals, and there's absolutely no difference between them. So one of the things that Scanit is going to be targeting here in the next few years, we already started doing that this year with a few folks in the industry that are tracking pollen, allergenic pollens in the air. And we're focusing on potentially starting some pilots here later this year in indoor buildings, offices, schools, hospitals, to track the same pathogens. And again, a lot of these are already available in our agricultural library, and it's the same product that we have today. So there's absolutely no big difference in terms of deploying the same product that we have, other than it would just be connected. It would be indoors and connected to a Wi-Fi network inside the building.
Okay, great. Mr. Jaydeep, can you please share how strategic partnerships, whether with government bodies, agriculture organizations, or be it local tech firms, are helping Scanit technologies make an impact in Indian agriculture?
Data on early airborne disease detection and the subsequent actions for these, it goes well beyond benefiting just the farmer. So as I was mentioning a little while ago, other critical stakeholders within the Indian agri-tech ecosystem we are having conversation with includes the farmer producer organizations, agricultural drone companies, government bodies, crop insurance companies, agri-input companies, research institutes, and more. And this is possible because the versatility of this data is quite significant in terms of its applications, right? So for example, government bodies can identify and profile regions with high or low disease management capabilities to distribute their subsidies. FPOs and agri-tech companies find this data as a unique agronomy advice to provide their farmers, who in turn then trust the FPOs to provide the right agri-input recommendations. Crop insurance companies can determine insurance premiums based on disease handling capabilities per region. Agri-input companies can test the efficacy of their chemicals real time in different regions under different microclimates. There are many apps made for farmers, and we understand from large agri-input companies that they are facing the challenge of making farmers use these apps regularly. We have experienced that in the US, that one of our anchor customers used our data as an input to their app. And in this case, when I say app, I mean a disease model prediction app, right? Or which can predict diseases. So our anchor customer in the US used this data as an input to their app, which in turn is then offered as a service to the farmers or other entities within the ecosystem. So the tech companies have a large potential to consume our data and benefit from it. All these stakeholders that we mentioned above, they are again non-competing interests and complementary strengths. Ultimately, it really boils down to the farmer who will benefit the most, as all the efforts and policies that are drafted are such that the yields, revenue, and the profitability of the farmers have to be maximized.
Okay, so moving on, Mr. Jaydeep, as you know, India's diverse climate and environmental conditions can be challenging at times. How robust are Scanit's sensors in adapting to various climatic conditions, and what measures have already been taken to ensure their durability in the Indian context?
So every year that we deploy our sensors, particularly in the US, we get new photos from our customers showing us how the spore cams, to their surprise, were unfazed by the cyclonic force winds that were actually blowing through the US Midwest. Once the spore cam was even knocked down by a tractor, but the spore cam surprisingly continued to relay data. I think one of the key pillars of Scanit is the breadth and depth of the engineering might that has gone into building the product, right? We have our founder, Pete, and a team with extensive experience in building, testing, iterating, and releasing IoT sensors that can thrive in the most unfavorable environments. This includes testing in not just different environments, but also testing different materials that go into each small component of the sensor. With close to about 19 patents today, durability has been the key focus for us all throughout. So be it the extreme heat like that of Rajasthan or extreme wetness like that of Kerala, Scanit Sporecam are built to thrive in all situations.
Great. So we are coming to the end of this interview. My last question is for Mr. Pete. So finally, looking ahead, what is your vision for Indian farmers in the next 5 to 10 years with integration of Scanit technology? And how do you see this transforming the agricultural landscape and improving the quality of life of Indian farmers?
I see two main forces coming into play. One is that small farmer will have available data that nobody else has had until now, right? Being able to make better informed decisions as to how am I going to treat those crops that are part of my life, my livelihood, right? Being able to know that you can wake up in the morning and have data available that says things are getting worse or things are getting better when it relates to my crop health, and make those informed decisions as needed throughout the year. So I think that would be key to improving the livelihoods of farmers in India. And second is, I think by the end of the decade, this technology will help bring Indian agriculture to a world stage level and compete more globally than it has been so far. So I think those are two big forces that will happen. One is at the small level, again, giving that data to the farmer that makes them more competitive at a global stage by the end of this decade.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Pete and Mr. Jaydeep, for sharing your insights and incredible work that Scanit Technologies is doing to revolutionize agriculture. And we look forward to seeing Scanit's continued impact and growth, particularly in addressing the unique needs of Indian farmers. To our audience, thank you for joining us today. We hope this conversation has given you valuable insights into the future of farming, about Scanit technologies, and the critical role that technology plays in safeguarding our food systems. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you.